Good morning, this is Angela with Parkrose Permaculture. It is first thing in the morning, January 1st, 2022. I'm standing next to my messy garden shed in the backyard of my permaculture garden in Portland, Oregon. It is 23 degrees and I'm in my jammies. Obviously I like a complete mess, just having let the ducks and chickens out and made sure they've had breakfast and they have water that's not frozen. I thought I would talk really briefly about some of my New Year's goals for this year for my permaculture garden and show you around a little bit because it's kind of in a state of chaos, and that's okay. I'm always trying to be really real with y'all and not make it seem like what happens here is some kind of photoshopped, carefully scripted look at permaculture, but really is actually a real world look, a real life look. So let me show you what I am working on. Yesterday it was above freezing and we got quite a bit of work done in the garden, although you wouldn't know it because things are now staged for projects. But today it is, like I said, 23, 24 degrees out. The ground is completely frozen and I will not be doing digging today. So let me flip the camera around and I'll show you what's happening. All right, well, like I said, it's going to be real life and there's going to be mess. I left the wheelbarrow here yesterday. I've started pruning this quince tree and you can see I've taken back quite a few large limbs, and I have a rotator cuff injury that just plagues the heck out of me. And so I have to take breaks in between doing hand pruning above my head. So a bunch of this will have to come off. You have to be careful pruning quince because they are tip bearers. And so I want to be careful that I am reducing the height, but I'm not also going to reduce my yield for next year. And that takes some strategic winter pruning. You can see we've been working on putting down wood chips and our egress window is pretty much finished. So I'm excited to get the basement finished enough for two boys to have a bedroom down there. That's really exciting. My 13-year-old and my 10-and-a-half-year-old will have their own bedroom space. We were not willing to have them, anybody in our family, sleeping in the basement without having a safe fire escape. So as we walk back, you can see again, lots and lots of killing frosts here. This poor Clematis montana really got it hard. It really doesn't like those temperatures in the 20s, low 20s, but it will come back again from the base. So again, more pruning. I started taking back part of this quince, had to take a break because my shoulder is ridiculous. So I'll have to be taking this back strategically so I don't lose too many blooms. I usually try and do pruning over Christmas break, and because we had snow and ice, that didn't really happen. So I will have to do most of my pruning in January. This is a Ashmead's kernel apple, which is also a partial tip bearer. So I will be taking back some of this. It does have spurs as well, so that will be getting pruned. Now here you can see the backyard looks like a giant bunch of chaotic mess because I have tree collards and feijoas and other delicate things all still covered because again we're in the 20s. Rain garden looks fine. It's pretty much just doing its thing. It chills out. I don't do any work with it over the winter. I do leave all the seed heads. The outdoor kitchen, which is still not finished, thanks for all the questions and comments about it, is being used to store wood right now because I don't have a garage. So that will eventually be a rocket bread oven because I love to make bread every day and I want to make it in the summer without heating up the house, particularly since our summers are getting hotter and hotter. So one of my big goals for January, besides pruning the fruit trees, getting them all done, you can see here this mulberry needs a bunch of pruning. Some things I finished pruning, but many like I have not. Like my pear here, I finished pruning it. Let me come show you real quick. And then we'll talk about this over here. See, my pear is all nicely pruned. Pears tend to throw up a bunch of obnoxious, really vertical branches that don't produce spurs. And so you want to really encourage your pear to go horizontally. And pears, unlike apples, are much slower to produce spurs if you prune off existing spurs. So I'm really careful to keep my fruiting spurs and encourage my pear to grow out with the wide branches and remove any of those straight up pieces. Okay, so here's my big project. I am making a hedgerow. This is my big January project. This area here, we have a shed built out of free stuff. It is 13 years old, 12 or 13 years old, made out of pallets, almost exclusively oak industrial pallets. So that was free to build, and it served me not very well. You can see there's quite a bit of mess here. I have a hard time getting in and out. I can't get a wheelbarrow in and out. We cut a wall open and reinforced it to make 2 entries, and it still just like doesn't work. I end up piling things outside the shed. That shed's gotta go. So I'm gonna move the duck pond, which is drained right now because we had freezing weather. All my extra tomato cages get stored back here. And I have this damson plum. Dang, it's cold. I'm really not feeling my fingers very well. I should have dressed warmer for 23-degree weather. So this area here from the shed all the way down here to where this pear tree is, I really want to turn into a small mini workshop studio space so that I can work on my woodworking projects. I can maybe have a little tiny camp wood stove out here so my daughters can have a place where they could have a little art studio. It could be a multi-use space outside of the house because this area has not been super functional. So the beehives will be getting moved, and this damson plum, you see I have begun to prune off some of the branches. It was really struggling with leaning this way really hard because it was crowded by the giant gummy berry that was here. So I've done some pruning, and we're going to be moving this. Obviously not today because the ground is frozen. This is going to get moved all the way over here to this side of the yard, to the hedgerow that I'm creating. So yesterday my husband and I removed the gummy berry, which was just a brute, and it's great. It fixed nitrogen that helped go into the orchard. It really served a good purpose. It produced a lot of chicken food. I have too many gummy berries. I'm one of those people that planted too many of several things I really liked early on and found they grew much bigger than the catalog said and produced much more than our family and our poultry needed. So this is some of the material from it. I'll post a picture of the root ball that we took out. So we took out the gummy berry here yesterday so that we can start to be thinking about making room in stages for a future workshop space. Not in the budget yet, but we're saving up for it. Feel like that is a good permaculture design utilization of this space. And again, the bees will go elsewhere. It was easiest after we dug this out to put the ducks and chickens in here and just let them go to town on weeds and grubs and worms and let them kind of scratch and work that all over, because I'm going to keep digging and moving. It didn't bother me that they're messing up all of the mulch in here because we're already digging and messing it up ourselves. That seemed like a good use of my labor and my husband's labor to not only remove the things we want to remove, but also create some free food for the ducks and chickens. So once the weather gets a little warmer, this damson plum will be moved, and that's going to be quite a project because unlike the gummy berry, well, we were trying to kill it basically, I am trying not to damage my damson, and so I'm going to need to make a big circle around it and make sure I don't damage the root ball before I transplant it, and it's going to be very heavy, and we might see if the neighbor will come help us. Okay. So then we have our garden beds. You can see I made an earlier video. I've got all my wood chips put down here all ready for the winter, which is really nice in a muddy climate to have lots of wood chips when you have dogs and kids. Really helps protect the paths, and as it breaks down, it turns into soil. So I have all of these bits of gummy berry that will need to get chopped up. But my big goal is really to think about moving that damson over here and working on the hedgerow. And I'll have a bunch of videos on that soon. You can see the ducks and chickens are all out. They're all fluffed up really good because it is bitterly cold. This area here, you can see the stark comparison. Area where the ducks and chickens are not allowed. Area where the ducks and chickens are working as a force for disturbance. They are absolutely demolishing through scratching and pecking and billing all of the wood chips in here. They're getting rid of weed seeds, they're getting rid of grubs and bugs, and then they'll get kicked out of here when their disturbance has reached a point where it's starting to damage biodiversity. I will then put down fresh wood chips and let this area rest. Sometimes I also put down cover crops. But because I'm currently working in here, I have this high bush cranberry, I have sea buckthorn, I have rosa rugosa, I have a European currant, and I have hazelnut. These are all things that work quite well in a hedgerow, and I'll be working my damson plum into this as well. as well as a few other things. And this will become a pleached hedgerow along the fence here that produces food and a barrier to keep my ducks and chickens from getting into the neighbor's yard under the fence. But that's my big New Year's resolution project. I want to get the hedgerow made. Oh, there's Johnsina. She's such a pretty girl. You can see how much wood we used during our snow event. We're really low on firewood. And for whatever reason, I haven't been scanning Craigslist this winter. I've been really busy. And normally I would have probably almost half a bay of next winter's firewood already split and stacked, and I am running behind. So another thing for me to think about early in the new year for a goal is to start working on my firewood for next winter. Always got to be thinking a year ahead. So looking at the shade garden here, still need to prune my elders. Again, they're a little too big and happy for this space. I need to prune my contorted mulberry above me here. It likes to send up these big water sprouts, can you see? And they're too close to my neighbor's property and they're way too huge, so I'll have to take all those back. So goals: pruning, firewood, moving plum tree, hedgerow. I think those are pretty good goals for the first part of 2022. So thank you for watching. I hope that you are looking forward to the 2022 gardening year. I know there are so many things going on right now that are just out of our control and can seem really daunting. And for me, I find a lot of solace and security in the garden, knowing that no matter what is happening, there will be plants coming up, there will be green things, there will be blooming things, there will be some sense of hope in my garden. So I hope you all are looking forward to that rekindling of hope in your garden as well as we go through this last, darkest, hardest part of winter and think forward to the spring. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out my Patreon down in the description. And I also have a PayPal. If you enjoy these videos, you can chuck a couple of bucks at my PayPal. That helps support our family and the work that I do here. Thanks.